from many of the other retrograde elements of the bill. That Labor has chosen to take us for fools, to take industry for fools, to try to dupe them and to elevate this kind of party political strategy and expediency ahead of certainty for thousands of Australian businesses is nothing short of a disgrace. But sadly, it's not a surprise, coming as it does from a weak government and a weak minister, a minister who never had a way, let alone lost his way. In the end, I suspect what lies behind this whole sorry saga is Senator Carr's desperate need to find savings and start offsetting the billions of taxpayer dollars that he has been wastefully splurging in his portfolio. Another likely motivation is that he's trying to mop up the unholy mess he made in 2008 by scrapping the highly successful Commercial Ready program, and with it commercialisation support that represented a lifeline to so many Australian innovators. Some of the businesses worst affected by that decision were in the IT, biotechnology and pharmaceutical sectors. And hey presto, as if by magic, these are the industries that generally stand to lose the least from the R&D tax credit legislation. Of course, that's a relative statement because although many may not realise it or appreciate it, yet many firms in those sectors will also be adversely affected by the new arrangements, and unfortunately, far from putting an end to the mayhem, Senator Carr is actually compounding his original error and now cutting off support to a myriad of other industries as well. Indeed, what kind of regime is this that would be likely to penalise a manufacturer for inventing a new product and successfully taking it to market? Sadly, that's what will happen here with this bill, because once the government deems that product to be commercially successful, often could be years down the track, it's going to claw back its support. So much for encouraging innovation. What kind of legislator would seriously let a mining company that built access roads and tunnels receive support for them if they were temporary and unsafe, but not if they were permanent, designed for the long-term benefit of the area and help facilitate even more R&D in the future? And more to the point, why on earth would you award support to an R&D activity carried out in a disused mine when you wouldn't support exactly the same activity performed by exactly the same company if the only difference was that it was carried out in one of its existing mines instead? I can only guess at how it is deemed logical that firms that create new products will now need to laboriously categorise all the different individual costs associated with their work. Madly enough, instead of devoting all of their energy on continuing to develop and enhance that product, they'll now also have to waste an enormous amount of time forensically itemising every one of their costs, all for the purpose of subtracting many of them for consideration under Labor's system. And we all shake our heads at the absurdity that says that if a meat processing company disposes of all the waste from failed production trials to landfill, it will be eligible to claim because the waste material has no value. Yet, if that same company makes a smart business decision to maximise the use of waste material to produce, say, compost or tallow, it won't qualify for support. And I'm almost inclined to give up on the Labor Party completely when I see wording in a bill that will ensure that support is awarded to building activity only where it occurs away from a building. What this set of rank amateurs in the government are remarkably trying to legislate is that once you include any of the results of building and construction R&D in a house or office or any other kind of structure for that matter, you lose all entitlements to government tax incentives. And I'm not sure if this is a deliberate mistake or sheer incompetence, but either way, it's utterly absurd. Construction sector claims in Australia under the scheme currently amount to around $400 million annually, and that indeed the considerable activity that goes with it will all but evaporate if this bill is passed into law. It will be a devastating blow to an industry that is a leader in the field of innovation in Australia. In short, the Coalition believes there are a series of fundamental problems with the bill, and I therefore wish to foreshadow that at the end of my speech I will be moving a second reading amendment that will specifically aim to address these shortcomings. What this amendment will confirm again for all to see is that the Coalition has a very considered and simple approach to R&D policy, and a better approach, a better way than a penny-pinching government that is doing the bidding of Treasury rather than listening to industry. And after all, this is a bill that we know originated out of the bottom drawer of Treasury, something that was a try-on. They tried it on with the previous Coalition government. They didn't succeed. They've tried it on again. Their only concern in Treasury is to claw back some more funding. They're not interested in providing incentives for research and development, and Minister Carr is the bunny who's sitting there doing their bidding. Indeed, businesses across the length and breadth of this country can rest assured that the Coalition will continue to stand up for them and for our continued economic progress and growth, and importantly, economic reform. Unlike those opposites whose actions in 2010 stand in complete contrast to their words of 2007, we will continue to honour our promises on R&D policy. We said during the recent election campaign that we would seek to reverse Labor's attempts to limit access to R&D incentives. We said we would reject its heavy-handed changes, and we said that we would see to it that under the Coalition, revisions to the system would not be introduced before 1 July 2011. We're following through with all of these promises to the Australian people and Australian industry, and we will not vote for legislation that is worse than the current regime. We will not vote for the bill as it currently stands, because we can't stand by and see this government decimate one of the very best tools in the armoury of government to foster innovation. Those opposite have already destroyed other vital innovation support mechanisms, and now they're at it again. They've recklessly wasted billions of dollars on programs like the BER, the insulation debacle, large handouts to multinational companies, and now are setting out on the path again with their gigantic $43 billion white elephant called the NBN. And yet they see Australian innovators as expendable and happily deprive them of hundreds of millions of dollars, even though innovation is so critical to our productivity and to continued economic growth into the future. Make no mistake, in its current form, this legislation will do untold damage to the Australian economy and Australian innovation. That's why I'm passionate about opposing this bill, and that's why I will continue to oppose any measure by this government to inflict greater pain on the great entrepreneurs that exist in our small businesses and in our large enterprises that are the backbone of continued economic growth in this nation. The existing R&D tax concession system has not only been in place for a quarter of a century, but has also delivered excellent results. Serious analysis of the figures will show you that it's played a critical role in fostering increased business investment on R&D. Business R&D expenditure in Australia rose to $16.9 billion in the 2008-09 year on the basis of the latest available figures that were released on the ABS in September this year. They're the latest figures we have, and I would hope that they continue to increase into the future. So, these statistics point to a continuing tale of very impressive increases in R&D spending, particularly during the past decade, and especially in areas of the economy that have been vital to Australia and will continue to be important, such as mining and manufacturing. And there's no doubt the ongoing growth in these numbers and the availability of the R&D tax concession has been far more than just a passing coincidence. As my colleague, the member for Wentworth, observed in the House in June, the concession has almost certainly been vital in kick-starting business investment in innovation from very low levels in the mid-1980s, in driving the strong subsequent growth and in making R&D less costly for firms which invested, obviously, in eligible activities. When it comes to R&D, we don't believe the government should be trying to destroy the current regime. We think it should be aiming to strike a logical balance between safeguarding those past gains and sensibly stimulating future increases. We also want to ensure that Australia continues to take advantage of the myriad spillover benefits that resourceful and enterprising businesses inevitably create for our nation. Madam Deputy Speaker, innovation is essential to Australia's future success. To maintain our competitiveness internationally, we must continue to expand our innovation capacity and capabilities and embrace opportunities to bring new approaches to many of the country's existing problems. And it will always be a priority for the Coalition to create and foster conditions in Australia that lift productivity, encourage enterprise and stimulate discovery and innovation. And of course, we hope the government sees these goals as important as well. Everything it has done so far, unfortunately, has indicated the opposite. Now is the time for it to set aside its spin and falsehoods, abandon a misguided agenda and join the opposition in trying to achieve genuine reform. Perhaps some might even be tempted to call for Labor to embrace a new paradigm when it comes to its attitude on R&D. The Coalition believes that increased innovation is crucial to Australia's economic development, and the way in which Labor responds to the Coalition's second reading amendment will offer a profound insight into the extent of its own commitment to a more innovative future. It's not too late for the government to relent, to finally come to the table, to put an end to the multitude of inconsistencies and contradictions. From the ashes of a process that hasn't served anybody well, it can retrieve the situation and show that it's prepared finally, at long last, to work with industry, importantly, and the Coalition to secure a practical, workable and positive outcome. And in that vein, I now move as a second reading amendment that all words after that be omitted with a view to substituting the following words. The House, 1, reaffirms its commitment to providing continued high levels of support for Australian businesses that invest in research and development activities. 2, notes that this bill weakens the current system and recognises that the bill has significant limitations in relation to the following. A, the proposed start date of 1 July 2010. B, the establishment of a dominant purpose test. C, the application of feedstock provisions to a wide range of activities and results. D, the reduction of support for R&D in the building industry. E, the disqualification of many small and medium-sized businesses from support because of new rules in respect of their ownership structures and turnover. F, the requirement for costs to be documented and attributed to core and supporting activities. G, the new provisions relating to third-party investors in firms' R&D. And H, the proposed application of new rules relating to the disposal of R&D results to actions taken prior to the commencement of this legislation. And 3, urges the government to release full modelling demonstrating the impact of its proposed changes and reconsider its approach in order to ensure that encouragement of business R&D activity is not substantially reduced.